condemnation of Russia for the war in Ukraine, but called on all states to refrain from the use of force to seize territory. The consensus came as a surprise as the group is deeply divided over the war in Ukraine, with Western nations earlier pushing for strong condemnation of Russia in the leaders' declaration, while other countries demanded a focus on broader economic issues. The New Delhi Declaration was adopted with 100% consensus on all development and geopolitical issues. Delegates from the world's top economies found common ground in spite of significantly different stances on topics such as climate change. Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced, "There is a good news with everyone's cooperation consensus has been reached on the New Delhi G20 leadership. I announce the adoption of this declaration." US President Joe Biden and his allies on Saturday announced plans to build a rail and shipping corridor linking India with the Middle East and Europe, an ambitious project aimed at fostering economic growth and political cooperation. Biden said, "This is a big deal. This is a really big deal." The corridor, outlined at the annual Group of 20 summit of the world's top economies, would help boost trade, deliver energy resources, and improve digital connectivity. It would include India, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Israel, and the European Union. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, "Enhancing connectivity with all regions has been a key priority for India. We believe that connectivity is a means to not only increase mutual trade between different countries, but also increase mutual trust." The rail and shipping corridor would help physically tie together a vast stretch of the globe, improving digital connectivity and enabling more trade among countries, including with energy products such as hydrogen. Although White House officials did not set a timeline for this completion, the corridor would provide a physical and ideological alternative to China's own nation-spanning infrastructure program. The White House gave no details on the project's cost or financing, though Saudi Arab's crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman mentioned a figure of around $20 billion during the announcement. It was unclear if the sum applied solely to the Saudi commitment. Apart from this, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky, who has been a regular presence at international summits, including last year's G20 in Indonesia, since Russia invaded his country more than 18 months ago, was not invited by Modi's government to this year's gathering. Zelensky has used the high-profile gatherings to argue for continued economic and military support for Ukraine. India is one of the most prominent US allies that has largely stayed on the sidelines of the war and has even dramatically increased its purchases of Russian oil. The summit communique, a joint statement agreed to by all participants, addressed the war among other issues. It included language underlying the principle that states cannot use force to change borders, disavowed the use of nuclear weapons, and called for a just peace based on the principles of the United Nations Charter. The communique also underscored that attacks on civilian infrastructure must end. A major breakthrough during the summit was the inclusion of African Union as a permanent member in the group of 20 largest economies worldwide. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, "In keeping with the sentiment of Sabka Saath with everyone, India had proposed that African Union should be given permanent membership of the G20. I believe we are all in this agreement on this proposal." With your agreement, he banged the gavel thrice. He said, "Before we start our work, I invite the AU President as a permanent member to take his position." After the declaration, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met for what the British Prime Minister called a very warm and productive discussion covering everything from trade to cooperation on education, research and defense. Sunak met his Indian counterpart on the sidelines of the G20 summit in New Delhi, saying afterwards he was confident they could work through the remaining hurdles standing in the way of a free trade agreement. The two sides have been negotiating a trade deal for more than 18 months, but officials are increasingly confident that they can finalize an agreement later this year. Sunak said afterwards, "Prime Minister Modi and I have a very warm and productive discussion on a range of different things. With regard to the trade deal, there is a desire on both our parts to see a successful trade deal concluded. The opportunities are there for both countries. There is a lot of hard work that is still to go, and we need to work through that, as we will do." Rishi Sunak also added that the two leaders had discussed further cooperation in the future of defense, scientific research, and education, hinting at a much closer alliance to come. India, as this G20 is showing, is going to be one of the most important geopolitical actors over the next years and decades, Sunak added.
Well, I think the bilateral relationship is in good health, and Prime Minister Modi and I are keen to deepen and broaden our relationship. The FTA is an obvious way for us to do that, which is why it remains our priority. And as I said, hard work to go, but I hope we can conclude a successful FTA. I think we can strengthen our security relationship as well. That's something that I've spoken to the Prime Minister about. And then something I'm particularly excited about is increasing the collaboration between our incredible researchers, our scientific community, our universities. The UK and India are two of the leading science technology superpowers of the world, and I think if we work more closely together, we can create jobs, create new businesses, and help solve some of the world's most pressing problems.